Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here with this such an interesting, engaged, clearly multidisciplinary team up in Birmingham. I really did want to make an effort to come here, but I will also explain that I'm going back because I commit to working in the NHS one afternoon a week, and that's what I'm going back to do this afternoon. Otherwise, I would have loved to stay to hear more. So I really want to outline what the commitment of the NHR is doing here. Being in Birmingham with teams, as you can see around you, reminds me that I think the people here are on sort of ahead of the wave, on the crest of the wave, and we need you to go and do so much more amongst the community, both the people in the room and also the people online, to say this matters, and this is how we're going to tackle it through all the imaginative ways. You've heard about the existing teams in global surgery and other teams in Birmingham, and it's a question of how you use that experience and expertise to go further in this topic. We're all aware of the Paris Agreement and what that means, and we need to be part of that solution to tackling the climate change. The WHO has outlined the health impacts of climate change, as you can see here, and also the responsibility of research and innovation together with offsetting in tackling it. So we have to be present and part of this. I'm sure many of you are aware that on Monday, UKHSA published the Health Effects of Climate Change report, which has really tried to pull out what this means and how science can clearly be part of the solution. What's interesting about the infographic is that it's not just describing it. We're done with describing it. We do need to continue understanding what is happening, but we also need to think about what you've heard today already, about what can be done across a whole range of approaches, and also working into thinking about the research gaps that are shown there across a whole number of areas, including, for example, I was at COP28 last week, really great awareness, for example, of the mental health impacts, particularly of extreme weather events. So starting to bring in everyone with the expertise that you can see on the panel today to think about both the impacts and how we mitigate and adapt. We also, in government, have sight of the National Risk Register. This is openly available, and this is the natural environmental hazards in the National Risk Register. And we know both from the work that Cabinet Office are doing and UKHSA that a good number of these natural environmental hazards are impacted adversely by climate change. So from a number of different angles, we know that this area is only going to get more critical, and that's why NHR is really choosing to pivot in this area. It is extraordinary to me. I was at COP26 in Glasgow, which Patrick Vallance led on the science aspects, and it's extraordinary that this was the first health day last Sunday. And you might think, why would you have 27 COPs before that without a health day when this is so critical? But I think what it served to do, I accompanied our minister, was to really focus the impact of the health sector in this area and to really capitalise on the energy around COP to say, what are we going to do about this and how do we make sure that health and the opportunities in the health sector are part of these discussions. So NHR is using this framework to think about how it's funding research both domestically and globally in these areas. There are a number of ways that we could dice and splice how we present our funding. And one of the things is why we've chosen to represent them as in the human health and care systems and research systems with an underpinning block of research capacity. Is because we have to see that join up that we're seeing today across the domestic and global areas. They're not separate, they are intertwined. There is much that we can learn in a very bi-directional way, and there's absolutely no doubt that all of us who work in global health think about reverse translation, affordable innovation on a very regular basis. So there is no hierarchy between these two. They are just, as it happens, they are funded through a different mechanism by government because our global health research is funded through an ODA mechanism. But the science and the impact needs to be universal. So to start with our consideration of human health, So we have a number of mechanisms that we use, and I sort of want all of you to feel that there is a home for you somewhere in this, and to inspire those who are coming to this anew, both to sort of gain inspiration from the day itself, but also to say what can you do in terms of going for funding. So we have a health protection research unit, environmental change and health, based at the London School of Hygiene, tropical medicine, but with many tentacles more widely, and we are continuing to fund our HPRUs. We are also launching a call, launched on the 7th of November, on public health and climate change. And that's because we're increasingly aware across NIHR, you will see that we have named public health and prevention as one of our strategic focuses. Because if you look at these areas on the right, transport, planning, housing, green and blue, and local food, those don't necessarily sit primarily in the health sector, but we have to work with all of our partners, particularly in local authorities in the wider NHS family, on these perspectives. So the Public Health Research Programme is spearheading on this, and Brian Ferguson has really taken, as the programme director, really taken this on board. So think about what partners you could be working with in a public health setting with local authorities to address this. We've also launched an initiative with UKRI. So I met Duncan Wingham, who was then exec chair of NERC, the Natural Environment Research Council, to say, where can you look for co-benefits? Because if you look across the, we've heard flavours of this, if you look across the areas, then we should be able to find areas of co-benefits, for example, from what you're describing in the Dragon trial. So this is on purpose, this is joint with UKRI, because we know that we have an NIHR research community, but we want to partner with all the other research communities, similarly to what you've seen on the panel today, but bigger and better. So 5 areas of focus, and they're all going to require that cross-disciplinary working that is exemplified here. So indoor environments in a net zero world, transportation, sustainable healthy diets, extreme heat, and decarbonising health and social care pathways. Almost all of them have co-benefits. There are a couple of friction points. So for example, if you look at indoor environments in a net zero world, our sealed houses may have impacts for respiratory transmission. So we need to look at the co-benefits, but we also need to consider where have we got to think about other approaches to this. And again, NIHR supports similar work in this. For example, this is the Global Health Research Centre for Non-Communicable Diseases and Environmental Change, headed up by the George Institute, which again are sort of considering the not just the infectious diseases impact, but on NCDs. And again, going back to thinking about where areas like primary healthcare, multi-sectoral action, and empowering people. Because I think we all realise that if we are not, if we forget that third pillar of empowering people, close to what you were saying about behaviour change, not just for the health and care professionals, but for people more broadly, then again we'll have missed one of the key components. The second area is about how we tackle health and care systems, and we've heard some of that already. So we know about the ambitious targets that the NHS have set. At COP28, in every single bilateral meeting I was in, this was brought up as us leading the way. So we've absolutely got to deliver on that ambition, and to be clear that that's an opportunity for us, noting its ambition. I'd also pull out the Health and Care Act. We can use policy, but we can also use legislation. And the key will be, how do we make sure that we see that what is laid down in legislation actually can be enacted at very tough times for the health and care system? And I think this is also, there are so many aspects to this. I've pulled out some of how clinical research, but also our laboratories need to be part of this. And so thinking about how this is enabled across the whole range, whether it's waste management, laboratory working, and much more. So we are supporting work through our HS&DR programme in looking at the delivery of net zero health and social care systems. And we're looking at how to keep the momentum on these programmes. So we often drop a commissioning brief in. We know that sometimes people take a little while to get together. And if we are seeing that, then we will review how to launch it again, but maybe doing more sandpit work, workshops, and capitalising on what what you're doing here today to get people together so that they've got readiness to apply. But if you look at a couple of those themes, sort of implementation of existing models, but also asking for innovative models of care. And post-COVID, we've already seen a shift to some of those more decentralized, remote monitoring, wearable options, not to assume that they are automatically more sustainable, but to ask and evaluate. And thinking as well, I'm glad I included that last one on leadership culture and behavioural change, because as we've all learnt, it's not enough to do the research and have it sit on a shelf in a publication unless you can actually consider adoption, implementation, scale up through that last pillar. We also support NHS England through the SBRI healthcare competition within the NHS, and you can see the challenge areas there around surgical pathways, waste, personalised care, and tools to support the workforce, and this is ongoing work. Again, we are working on our global health research side, particularly to look at extreme weather events. There's been a recent call, and we will be announcing the successful bidders shortly. So again, asking for that partnership with other countries as we do across all of our global health research and as embodied here. So the third area is looking at research systems, because I think we have to ask, what are we doing on our own doorstep? So we have a number of different approaches here. So one is, what is NIHR corporate doing? We have a headcount, we have offices. So just looking at it ourselves, because we're not, we have to be prepared to walk the walk ourselves. And thinking about how that works both within NIHR, but also working with other research partners on the Concordat. We don't need to do it alone and do it in silos. We are much better off doing it aligned with other researchers. We're also looking at the carbon calculator for research and studies within a project, studies within a trial for current NIHR awards. For example, the work by Liverpool CTU on lower carbon clinical trials. You may also be aware that there is alignment from the UK government that ODA, including global health research, which is funded by ODA, aligns with the Paris Agreement. And so we are looking at how to embed this across our global health research portfolio. And our last one is building capacity, because if we don't have a workforce, there's not much that we can do. And sometimes when we're pulling into an area, we need to say that there is a sustainable and opportunistic career pathway. So I bet if you go and talk to people you know and you don't know, you will find people across many disciplines. And we need to signal that there's a place for everyone here. So we are looking at working with the NIHR Academy as to how to bring this area into the fellowships. We're also looking at how we grow all of you into panel members to say, bring your interest to across all of our panels so that it's not left as an afterthought. How do we ask those questions openly? And how do we train people sort of through a whole variety of ways? This is our community of practice, or one part of it, and we would like to grow it. So I finish with a different way of looking at it, which is across our global climate and health research portfolio. Because for me, we've got to have considerations of equity at the start, at the middle, at the end. Because if we're doing this purely in a sort of a bubble in Birmingham, then we'll have, which I don't see, then we'll have forgotten that those most impacted are those around the world. So it's a call to arms, and again, I can clearly see that I'm pushing at an open door to say, think about equity across all of what we do in this area. There are so many opportunities. It is really exciting to be at this conference, and hopefully there'll be many more like this to build on what you're outlining today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So if I can ask you a question, please, and I think you sort of answered it. Just for the people in the room, if they're looking at taking on a PhD in this topic, or they want to put their own research topic together on this idea, I don't think the members of this panel and ourselves, we're not the only game in town, and we see ourselves as a small part of the solution. But would the NIHR be welcoming these applications in the future, and can people start to put together ideas, or are they too late?
Yep. No, so we are going to have a pipeline of calls. So we broadly fund across infrastructure, programmes and capacity building through the Academy, through our fellowships. And we look to have a portfolio of options because we know that we need to do all three in tandem. And in fact, when I talk to other global funders, NHR is known for trying to do all three of those in balance. So yes, there is definitely open for business. The one that we are most sort of working up is how you fit this into the fellowship, noting that there isn't a specialty of climate change yet, but we really want, anaesthesia, surgery, so many different areas, behavioural science. I mean, the spread that you've got today really shows it off. So I think this is an emerging area, but I'm signalling that it will be a sustained area. And I think it's up to applicants, as ever, to demonstrate why it matters and why their approach is so important for having an impact. It's good to talk about the funding that we're putting out. It's even better to think about what is the impact going to be. And it's a call for everyone to demonstrate that pathway to impact. That's what gets work funded.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So I'm going to wrap up that session now and we're going to move on to the next session. You ready? But thank you very much for the panel. I'm very excited. That was a good session.